with us. We're going to talk about a topic that most are pretty familiar with at this point, but we're also going to invite a few other people to speak on the issue of Sunday sales as well. So I'll begin. My name is Roger Reinert. I'm the state senator from Duluth. I've been the Senate author of this bill for a few years now. Most in the media and the public will remember that 2 years ago we shared with you, Representative Loon and I, a whole spectrum of bills. From the small end, which would have allowed the Sunday sales of growlers, a product that liquor stores in Minnesota don't carry, but is important to the booming craft beer industry in Minnesota. On the other end, a full repeal of the Sunday sales ban. Minnesota is one of only 12 states in the country to still retain that post-prohibition blue law. You may also recall that none of those were successful. So from my perspective, as we approach this biennium in the year 2015, there's really no reason to offer this full array of choices anymore. And so we'll be only working on a full repeal of Sunday sales. Representative Loon can speak to her bill, which was already introduced. My bill will be read in the Senate for the first time today, and it's just a straight up full repeal of the Sunday sales ban. And I would just share from my perspective, not only did the full array not go anywhere, we couldn't find any reasonable approach to make any forward progress on this issue 2 years ago. But clearly the public understands the Sunday sales issue. You know, it polls consistently at over 60% in favor of the repeal. The public gets that all this does is allow consumers to make a choice and business owners to make choices about how they operate their business. It's probably the thinnest bill folder I have in my office, and it's probably the shortest bill I will offer this session. It's not complicated. So we're just going to take a straightforward approach this session. And I would add that, you know, coming off an election cycle where this was an issue that people talked about and candidates campaigned on and candidates were surveyed on, I really feel that 2015 is the year to get this done in the Minnesota legislature. We have a governor who has said he will sign the bill. We have a Speaker of the House who is supportive. So we've made significant forward progress. With that, I'll invite my partner in the House, Representative Loon, to make some comments, and she'll introduce our guests that are with us today, and they'll make some comments as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and good morning. I'm Jenifer Loon, State Representative from Eden Prairie, and very pleased to continue working in partnership with Senator Reinert on this issue, one that I think is important for economic freedom and consumer freedom in the state of Minnesota. We are one of only 12 states that still ban liquor sales on Sunday, and the time has come for this law to be changed and to be brought into the 21st century. Consumers want it, as you will hear from just 4 small business owners that we were able to get here on very short notice. They want it. This is an issue that makes sense, and people of Minnesota understand that. So my bill was introduced. It's House File 231 on Monday, and I have at least 20 co-authors on there with me, a good bipartisan group of legislators. This is not an issue that cuts across party lines at all, and I think it's a great issue for us to work on bipartisanly, both within the House and in the Senate. And again, it's something that will speak well to the ability of businesses to operate as they choose and for consumers to shop as they choose in the state of Minnesota. So with that, we'll talk a little bit about where things look after we hear from our business owners this morning. But you know, there's been a familiar refrain from detractors on this issue that liquor store owners don't want this, that this is bad for business. And I think you'll hear some very compelling stories today that there are a large number of liquor store owners who want this change, who want the ability to manage their business and to serve their customers as they know best how to do that. So first with us we'll have Louis Stachus. He is the owner of Merwin Liquors and Ace Spirits, located out of Minneapolis, but he's got stores in other cities as well. And then David Hansen, and David is the owner of Hansen's Liquors in Stillwater. Nick O'Connell, owner of Booze Mart in St. Paul, and Tamara Kramer, who owns Vom Fass in the Mall of America. So with that, Mr. Stachus.
Thank you. As I was introduced, I own 4 different stores. Merwin Liquors has 3 chains. It's a value chain of retail stores, and Ace Spirits, which is a craft beer and whiskey boutique. The two different brands keep me on sort of in two positions on this issue. On the one hand, in the Merwin Liquors side, we would stay open on Sunday. We would like the choice to stay open on Sunday. We feel that it, not only are our customers asking for it, but it would be hugely beneficial for our business. On the Ace Spirit side, we would also like to be open on Sunday, but have similar concerns to what other retailers have been raising, and so it would be our choice, in that case, to perhaps remain closed for certain hours during the week to make up for that time. And so what we're asking for is the opportunity to make those business choices to better serve our customers and to improve our business and to repeal these sort of antiquated laws.
Hello, my name's David Hansen. I own Hansen's Liquor in Stillwater, Minnesota. I'm just a stone's throw from the Wisconsin border. I basically just have to add on to what Louis said is that my customers have said loud and clear that they want this. And I would just like the opportunity and the choice to be able to provide it. We sell a legal product in a legal and responsible way, and I should have the choice to be able to do that on Sundays without government interference. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I operate Booze Mart in West St. Paul. I think it should be an easy issue. We're keeping our beer cold for the customer on Sunday. We're paying rent. We've got product in there that we need to sell, and we want to best serve the consumer. That's about all.
Hello, I'm Tamara Kramer, and I'm the local owner of Vom Foss in the Mall of America. Vom Foss is actually two separate shops, off-sale liquor store and a separate shop for oil, vinegar, and spices. In the liquor store, we sell premium products in pretty little bottles, such as rare whiskeys, unique brandies, and specialty liqueurs. I strongly support the repeal of Sunday liquor sales blue laws for three key reasons. One, my customers want the opportunity to buy products when it's most convenient for them. Secondly, it would generate up to $100,000 in additional sales revenue for me and increase the likelihood that I'll be able to open additional locations. And thirdly, it would create thousands of dollars in additional wages for my current employees. And if I can open more shops, it would mean more new jobs. I want to expand briefly on each point. So my customers are a mix of 50-50 mix or so of visitors and local residents at the Vom Foss Mall of America. On Sundays, while we're working in the oil, vinegar, and spice shop, we see shoppers stop to gaze into the liquor store through the locked door every day, several times a day. And they often come in and ask why we aren't open on that side. And I tell them that unfortunately in Minnesota, shoppers are not able to buy liquor on just any day that's convenient for them. My customers are educated, they're worldly, discerning of quality, and they travel the U.S. and the world through literally and through TV and internet programming, learning the art of fine food and drink appreciation. They are often two-income households who want the option to shop at Vom Foss on Sundays, which is one of the busiest retail shopping days of the week. The second point is really about my business. It's painful for me to see those customers walk away without a purchase because at least half the time, especially if they're visitors, it's a long-term revenue loss for me because they aren't going to extend their trip just to shop at Vom Foss, although sometimes they're tempted to. To my little business, $100,000 is a lot of money, and it could mean the difference between success and failure for me. Sales revenue is also the go, no-go factor for opening 4 additional locations in Minnesota that I already have franchise licenses for. Thirdly, it's also about jobs. I created 13 new jobs for Minnesotans when I opened the Vom Foss in Mall of America last April. These are full-time and part-time positions for experienced workers that pay significantly more than minimum wage. I also hired 6 seasonal workers for the holidays. Sunday liquor sales means more staff hours and more earnings in my employees' pockets. If I open 4 more locations, it could create up to 50 new positions, including managers, assistant managers, and sales associates. I'm sure that we can all agree that profitable small businesses are important to the economic health of Minnesota. And I appreciate the leadership of our elected officials in creating an environment that supports new industries and businesses, even when it happens to be craft liquor. Our laws should support opportunities for all new businesses, including breweries, distilleries, wineries, and retailers of premium quality spirits. For me, this is about a new kind of customer seeking a different type of experience, one in which they savor little luxuries in life. It's not about a town drunk who doesn't plan well to buy their liquor Monday through Saturday. I would like the right to make the choice that's right for my business. Thanks for the opportunity to share my perspective.
Right, well, we'll open for questions, excuse me, in just a minute, but again, I just wanted to thank our business owners, and they would be available for questions as well. But just a little bit about where we go from here. Obviously, we're pushing for hearings. I will be pushing very hard to try to get a hearing in the House Commerce Committee. I've already spoken with the chair, and I think with the encouragement and support of some folks in our leadership, primarily the speaker, who's noted that his personal position on this is favorable. We could get a hearing to air, any concerns, additional support that I know is out there. And so we hope that that will be something we can get accomplished soon, and that the momentum on this issue is definitely continuing to grow. More businesses, more consumers, and that are stepping up every day. We would certainly encourage folks to contact their legislators to express their views on this issue. And with that, we'd be happy to take your questions.
Representative, despite the support of the speaker that you mentioned, what makes you think that the votes are there, given the previous lopsided results that we've seen in the House in particular?
Well, I think it's fairly widely acknowledged, even among people who may be opposed to this, that it's just a matter of time before this change occurs. It's not if, it's when. And with every year that passes, again, there is more pressure, more growing momentum. And I think this year we are seeing a change in the political landscape that may allow this to be the year that it happens. Now, Senator Reinert and I are both pushing forward with, sort of the broadest measure of repeal, just repealing the prohibition on Sunday. I'm realistic enough to know that the legislative process, and as it works its way through, that we may have to make some tweaks to that law. There's been a number of other alternatives introduced, but the point is we need to get a hearing on this issue. We need to have the legislative process be working on this issue. Again, consumers are demanding it, business owners are demanding it, and it's time to do that. Those votes that have happened in the past have generally been an amendment sort of lobbed on the floor during discussion of a liquor bill, and a discussion that could derail other important provisions important to business owners and communities and that on the topic of liquor. So I'd like to see this actually moved separately as a standalone bill, not encompassed in other important issues pertaining to our liquor laws, and really have that open and thorough discussion.
Follow-up to that, you have been doing it in small pieces, small amendments, small issues until now. So the strategy is to just go full bore, try and get it done.
I mean, just to correct, 2 years ago, we offered a whole spectrum and said to the legislature, we're willing to go small baby steps if that's where the legislature wants to go. We personally believe in full repeal, but here's an entire spectrum. And those with long memories will remember that at least in the Senate, we started out with some reasonable small steps, including the growler sales on Sundays, taproom sales on Sundays, and then, as the process moved forward, those things were removed simply for fear. Considered that they were the crack in the door and that the inevitability of a full repeal was just around the corner. I would concur wholeheartedly with Representative Loon that, we're pushing hard to have standalone hearings on a Sunday sales repeal. The public understands it. The public is ready for it. I hear even from people who say, I don't support that, but it's time that there's actually a vote on it. And so the question I continually get more and more as time goes on is, why can't this be on the ballot? Why can't we just vote on it? And I think we're both interested in working through the legislative process rather than punting for some sort of a ballot question.
Would growler sales be included, the way this bill is currently written? As you said,
Absolutely.
it's very broad.
Yep, I mean, that's part of the approach, is instead of piecing things out, let's take care of the craft industry, let's take care of the micro distillers, let's take care of everyone, the store owners who want to have the choice by just removing the Sunday sales ban. And I think it's always important to restate, nothing in the bill would require anything. All it does is give store owners the opportunity to be open if they choose and give consumers the opportunity to make a purchase if they choose. If a store owner feels it's bad for their business model to be open on Sunday, or they feel it's spreading sales out over 7 days when they only have 6 days of revenue, they can choose to stay closed on Sunday, or they could be open on Sunday, which I think we heard from one of the store owners, and maybe close a different day or reduce hours somewhere else in recognition of consumer spending habits. Conversely, or likewise, I should say, if an individual doesn't want to make a purchase on Sunday due to their faith tradition or any other reason, there's certainly nothing that compels them to do so. All we're saying is let businesses have the choice and let consumers have the choice, as is currently the case in 38 of 50 states.
I have a question for the owners here.
Sure.
The common refrain we hear from the MLBA is that it's simply going to spread 6 days of sales across 7. And Louis, you've said, you have to cut hours if that's the case. Do you guys feel that that's the case based on what you see?
To the microphone, please.
Whoever wants to take it.
Well, I know for me personally, maybe I'm different than some. I am literally right on the border of Wisconsin. And being open Sunday would not be just spreading out the same revenue over another day. It would be extra added revenue for the store. And like one of the other members mentioned earlier, this absolutely could be the difference between success and failure for my store. So I guess that's my take on it. Thank you.
Could you expand on that just a little bit? I'm trying to wrap my head around how one day would make or break your business when you can sell.
Well, in the industry, margins are tight, volume is tight. Like Mick was saying earlier, the cooler is working all 7 days a week. Rent's being paid all 7 days a week. This is revenue from additional purchases, not just people that are deciding to necessarily shop on Sunday instead of Monday or Tuesday.
Have any of you broken down, do you have any, percentage-wise or volume-wise, how much you're losing by not selling on one of the weekend days? I don't know if any of you have done that.
I think some of the other stores.
Yeah, she mentioned that.
I did some pretty simple math, and I just took the average of what I sell at Vom Foss Mall of America every other day and multiplied it not by 1, but by 52, because there are 52 Sundays in the year. And it literally means between $50,000 and $100,000 for me. I'm a relatively new business. I've been in business almost 9 months now. But based on my averages I'm seeing already, that's a big number.
You said 50 and 100,000 over what span of time? I'm sorry.
A year.
A year.
Sure. I have two responses for you. Number one, I've been doing this for 10 years. A typical Saturday equates to 2 weekdays. And so I would anticipate that a Sunday would be very similar to that. On a second note, we fought a very similar issue in the city of Minneapolis, a law sunsetted which allowed us to stay open until 10 p.m. When that law sunsetted, we were forced to close at 8 p.m. And we heard the same exact arguments as this. It's going, we're only spreading more sales out over more hours. We're only, if my competition's going to be open, I have to be open. Well, we won that fight, and some stores chose to close at 9 o'clock. Some stores chose to close at 8. We chose to stay open until 10, and we saw incremental increases in revenue for those hours. Now, others made the choice not to, and that's fine. But the arguments were the same, and for us, the results were exactly what we're anticipating here.
Senator Reinert, realistically, there's a formidable lobby on the other side of this that has fought successfully for many years against this. What's the likelihood you're going to overcome this year?
Well, clearly there's more momentum in 2015 than we've ever seen before. We came off an election cycle where candidates were actually asked to take positions on this issue. I want to come back to the question about the House floor amendment, and I think Representative Loon addressed it. That number gets cited frequently But I served in the House. Floor amendments added at the last minute are not the vehicle by which you change controversial public policy. Members who may be supportive are not going to jump onto that. You know, I would point towards what happened in the Senate, where the ability for the growlers to be sold on Sunday was in the Commerce liquor bill, and then was pulled out. And in the Senate, we saw 40 plus, I think it was 44 or 46 members say put it back in, and the bill was actually withdrawn. So to your point, Tom, there are certainly powerful forces on the other side of this. You know, what is on the pro side of this is the people of Minnesota. You know, here we are, a state that in the last couple of years has made marriage equality law, has dealt with the issue of medical marijuana, but somehow liquor sales on Sunday is too much. That's a bridge too far. I think the people of Minnesota are ready for this. 38 other states have figured out how to do it. Every state on our border, including both provinces, have figured out how to do it. You know, the 65+% of Minnesotans who want this deserve to have their voices heard with a hearing and a floor vote on the issue.
But specifically on the opposition, I mean, last spring you were close on the growler question, and then the Teamsters scuttled it at the end. Specifically, are you in negotiation with that union? Is there some reason to think there will be a different approach on their part or something? Tell us about any update on that from last spring.
Well, I mean, I'll let House leadership talk about whether they're beholden to the Teamsters union or not. But clearly 40+ members of the Minnesota Senate were not when we took a vote to put that language back in the bill. So, I mean, you may recall they made a big production of stripping their endorsement of me, which I think was unfortunate. Most of their issues revolve around transportation, a committee I've served on every year I've been at the legislature. So I'm disappointed they broke that relationship, and so their concern on this issue really is not my concern anymore.
So no, you're not talking with that. What about you, Representative Loon?
Well, and I have talked with some of my colleagues in the House about this, and I will say publicly, I am happy to put language in the bill that would make the Teamsters comfortable and supportive of this bill. As I understand it, their concern is having to have their members working on the weekends to make deliveries. And I know that liquor store owners can manage their inventories and operate in a way that that would not be necessary. And I'd be happy to write into the language of the bill that they would not be required to make deliveries on the weekend. So if the Teamsters are listening, please come and see me. I'm in room 449. My door is open. I actually have draft language now, but if they want something changed, I'm happy to accommodate them.
Is this for both of the sponsors, is this the last year you'll make a run at this at the legislature before just putting it on the ballot?
You know, I think it's really too early to make that assessment. You know, it's January, and you know we've got a ways to go, and we've got a 2-year, cycle, legislative session ahead of us. So I think it's a little too early to make that assessment.
What are you hearing from liquor store owners outstate inside this border where they may have fewer competition concerns? Are they in support of this?
I think that what you hear, certainly what I hear in northeastern Minnesota, is that if you're on a border, you're at a strong disadvantage. And so one of the things I think that map illustrates is that 75% of Minnesotans are in a legislative district within 30 miles of the border. You know, what the map is meant to illustrate is that Minnesota is not an island. You know, no one argues that we lose revenue by not allowing these business owners the opportunity to be open on a Sunday. They only argue over how much. And in a body that is always concerned about revenue and how it's raised and how it's spent, my strongest position on this is just allowing people to have the choice. But right behind it is sort of an incredulistic feeling of why would we just ignore this revenue. So I think that's what that, I didn't put that map together, but I think that's what that map is meant to represent. And certainly representing a district that sits on a border. There is no coincidence that every bridge from Minnesota to Wisconsin has a liquor store at the bottom of it. That's true of the 3 in my community, and I think it's true for every bridge going up and down the border.
Outstate and not on the border, though, are you getting support for Sunday sales?
Well, again, we haven't had a hearing to draw forth members, but again, when organizations opposed to this are saying that all their members are lockstep behind them, we know that's not true. There are members of the MLBA standing right here in front of you today. So they don't speak for every member of their association. And again, No one is saying a business must be open on Sunday. We all respect the ability of business owners to determine the hours and the days of operation that work best for them. This is about giving business owners who want the choice the freedom to make that choice.
Any other questions for any of our store owners? Well,
Are you all or nothing on this bill? Would you take a watered down version, or does it have to be full Sunday sales?
Depends on what's in the water. You know, we certainly are reasonable. I think our reputation, both Representative Loon and myself, are to be reasonable, pragmatic legislators. We stood here 2 years ago with a whole spectrum of choices trying to acknowledge that the legislature may not be ready to go full repeal. It's frustrating that we weren't able to make any progress on that. However, I would think both Representative Loon and I are open to conversations. You know, we have other models in Minnesota on related issues. You know, the best example I can point to is closing time. I was on the Duluth City Council when the legislature said you can stay open until 2 a.m. if you want to. And I think at maybe the very next city council meeting we did in Duluth, because it made sense, having Superior, Wisconsin right across the border. Now, if we were to look at Minnesota, we see on the borders, we see in regional centers, we see in Minneapolis and St. Paul, late closing times. You go to small town Minnesota, you still see early closing times because it doesn't make sense for their community, wasn't something that the community looked for. So, you know, I think we're open to conversations. I think we're open to conversations that involve the differences around Minnesota. But I think at this point, given what happened 2 years ago and not making progress on even the smallest, most sensible steps, and you know, just to come back to the growler issue, here's a product not only that stores don't sell, but Teamsters don't carry. And yet somehow that became, you know, the lightning rod issue. My position at least is we're going to talk about full repeal. The public gets it, the public wants it, the time is now.
Other than the speaker's support, what, Representative Loon, you said the political landscape has changed. What else has changed?
Well, again, I think with, you know, leadership of the House, with the Speaker expressing, you know, support, personal support for the issue, I think that's a big step forward. In the governor, you know, having expressed his support, if, you know, if it gets to his desk, that he would sign it. You know, you've got two very important prongs of the three-legged stool here that has got to come together. But, you know, we're seeing more members publicly declare their support. It was an issue, again, in the campaign that legislators and candidates were asked about. And so more are coming out publicly with their support. And I will tell you, privately and quietly, there's a number of other members who are supportive for this that aren't interested in putting their name out there publicly at this time. So the momentum is definitely there. It's happening. And we just, now is the time to seize that and harness that momentum and move forward.
Talk to the speaker about finding a way to make this happen in the House?
I have not had a conversation with him recently, but I will be doing so soon.
How about the Senate? Is any budge in your leadership and some of your committee chairs that have put the kibosh?
And clearly the landscape hasn't changed in the Senate, so the problems that we saw in the past, I would anticipate are still going to be there. However, I think that the change in the House is significant. You know, the potential is there for the House to pass something off the floor and send it over to the Senate. With the governor having said, I will sign the bill, it certainly puts the Senate on the spot. And we've seen in other votes that there are members that want to support this. So, you know, again, I will come back and say this is an easy issue that the public understands. The time is now to have not only committee hearings, but votes on the issue. So let's see that happen in 2015. Thanks, everyone, for coming. I'm sure we'll all be available for some individual questions if you would like.
Thank you.